Standards identified in these activities have been adopted from the content standards of the national organization for each discipline. More information on this can be found in the Technology as Facilitator of Quality Education model. The students in this Introduction to Black Studies class are discussing a newspaper article about racism. They begin by reviewing the definition of power. This activity integrates Social Studies Standard 6 for High School A, which states students should examine persistent issues involving rights, roles, and status of the individual in relation to the general welfare.
The students at Moravia, we should now be at a point where we're operating more on an equal footing. Early in the semester, when we were talking about enslavement and other things, you had a tendency to feel like, well, the black students at West are right and maybe we'll kind of hold our opinion, but the last few days you've been speaking up a little more, and based on the tape that you've seen redefining racism and parts of Eyes on the Prize and remembering that definition of power, what your input becomes even more important. Now, if somebody can remind me quickly, what's the definition of power?
The instructor uses the Iowa Communications Network to teach the course to students at 3 high schools. The use of the Iowa Communications Network integrates Technology Performance Indicator number 10, which requires students to collaborate with peers, experts, and others to contribute to a content-related knowledge base by using technology to synthesize, produce, and disseminate information.
Power is the ability to define reality and have other people respond to your definition as if it's their own.
The students then discuss alternatives to the word race. This activity integrates Social Studies Standard 1 for High School C, which requires students to apply an understanding of culture as an integrated whole that explains interactions of language, literature, the arts, traditions, beliefs and values, and behavior.
Or if Levi and I were both, say, type B negative, and I don't know if that's a real blood type or not, but he and I would have more in common than, say, Mr. Perkins. And the only reason I use Mr. Perkins, for example, I had to look for somebody about my height and my weight. Everybody else my height way more than that, so we pick on Mr. Perkins. But the ethnicity then says, why do we look different? And that term race says that we are a different race, and we're not. There's, how many races are there?
One.
Yeah, one race. And what's the name of that race?
Human.
Yeah, human race. So there's a human race.
The students then begin to discuss the aspects of the article that they found interesting and summarize the article's main points. This activity integrates English Language Arts Standard number 3, which requires students to apply a wide range of strategies to comprehend, interpret, evaluate, and appreciate texts.
There was a lot of stuff in it that I don't think any of us realized before, like that sometimes even black people, they assume that white people are better and get better grades and stuff like that, when really that's not true at all.
Okay. So now we're having someone she's saying that she found something in there that, again, going back to that definition of power, that many people didn't realize that there are many black people who are assuming that because somebody's white that they're smarter or better.
After determining the article's main points, the students discuss and challenge the ideas in the article through a discussion with their peers. The students participate as knowledgeable, reflective, creative, and critical members of a literacy community. This fulfills English Language Arts Standard number 11. By having the students discuss stereotypes, the instructor also addresses Social Studies Standard 2 for High School E, which refers to investigating, interpreting, and analyzing historical and contemporary viewpoints within culture related to persistent issues while employing critical judgment.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, say I don't act smart. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that I'm acting black then, if it's vice versa like that too?
Okay. And that's an excellent question, because in effect, now notice what he's doing. He's saying, okay, if the article is correct, if the article is correct, that many black people assume that acting smart is acting white. Now let's say if he takes himself out of the equation and then says, then does that mean that when someone black wants to lower their grade and not do as well, if they think then that they're acting black, then if someone white is not doing well in school, does that mean they're acting black? Because you never hear that. But can you see then where his question would come from?
After evaluating the article, the students review the history of the black culture to see if today's trends were present throughout history. This discussion demonstrates historical thinking standard number 3 for grades 5 through 12, historical analysis and interpretation.
Can somebody remind her? Kemet.
The land of black.
Yeah. Kemet means the land of the black people, or black land. And remember, they didn't have vowels, so they just spelled it. Yeah, KMT, Kemet, and it means the land of the black people. So if we go back in history, we find out black people have done not only well in school, but geniuses in math and science.
As the students examine the interactions of ethnic, national, and cultural influences in specific situations, they demonstrate Social Studies Standard 4 for high school E.
How does that fit in with what happened to us from being black and smart to being smart being associated with being white in that definition of power? The question makes sense?
Yeah, I said due to the Holocaust and due to slavery, we were stripped of our knowledge from the past.
Okay, so then you're saying that the Holocaust of enslavement and having your knowledge of the past taken away, then someone can reprogram you.
The teacher relates the course content to a subject that the students are familiar with, soap operas. This analogy helps the students consider individual development and identity. The teacher's comments address Social Studies Standard 4 for high school F, which requires that students examine the role of perceptions, attitudes, values, and beliefs in the development of identity. The discussion also helps the students see the importance of how people view themselves and how identity can change over time. This fulfills Social Studies Standard 2 for high school B, which requires students to apply key concepts such as time, chronology, causality, change, conflict, and complexity to explain, analyze, and show connections among patterns of historical change and continuity.
You ever watch Days of Our Lives?
Yeah.
Okay, and now they usually have a lady named Hope or Rachel, and Hope or Rachel always, something happens, they get hit in the head, and they forget who they are, right? And when they forget who they are, when they come to, what happens? What do they spend a long time trying to do? Jump in, Miss Hill. Or you like soaps too?
They always trying to like figure out what happened to them when they lost their memory.
Okay, so if Hope was a billionaire when she lost her memory, and then she comes to and people tell her, oh no, you were broke. Okay, if Hope was a student at Harvard, 4.0, she comes to and says, oh no, you dropped out in 3rd grade. How is she going? Is she going to act differently? So basically, somebody can redefine her reality for her. Mr. McGee, does that kind of tie in with the comments you were making?
Yeah.
Okay. So the power, when people tell you who you are, you act to raise or lower your expectations to fit that. So it goes back to that ability to define reality.
The students then begin to discuss ways that they could change the circumstances that create racism. One idea involves choosing not to watch programs on television that portray blacks poorly. The teacher explains the economic implications of this action. This discussion integrates Social Studies Standard 7 for high school H, which asks students to apply economic concepts and reasoning when evaluating historical and contemporary social developments and issues.
If I put a show on to make money, then that's what I want to do. I want to see how many people are watching my show. Now, if people don't watch the show, it doesn't make money, take it off. If people watch, and I'll pick on the Uglies because I watched one episode of that, and so that's the Good Times, the year 2000 version. But if people watch the other shows, then that's what they'll put on. And they say, oh, that's what people are watching. So yeah, this is political. So in effect, what I'm suggesting to you is, with the media, you use some power, redefine reality. Say, oh, black people don't watch those shows, they're too silly.
The classes discuss how white and black people should eliminate negative stereotypes. This learning activity integrates Social Studies Standard 4 for high school G, which requires students to evaluate the impact of stereotyping on individuals and groups. As the students express their own opinions regarding race, the instructor also integrates Social Studies Standard 1 for High School G, which requires students to construct reasoned judgments about specific culture responses to persistent human issues.
When I think about the whole issue about whether it's true about like black students or whatever and white students thinking or acting like white or black or whatever, I mean, if you say something for so long, then people will start believing it. But then until people step up and prove that what that person said was wrong, then that's only when they're going to start believing that that's not true. Like you said, like they say blonde heads are dumb or something like that. And I mean, and like blonde haired girls should step up and say, hey, we're not dumb, and show people that they, you know, that stereotype is wrong. As soon as we can blot out all the stereotypes that people put into the world today, then that's the only time that won't nobody believe it anymore.
Okay.